And welcome back, students, as we continue to discuss interfaces. Today, we need to take a small segue here and talk about defined constants in interfaces. So, getting started, an interface can contain defined constants as well as method headings, or instead of method headings. So, instead of just like having a kind of like your method template, you can also put constants in here. So, for example, pi is a good constant to use in our demonstration purposes, so you could use that in your interface. Now, when a method implements the interface, it automatically gets the defined constants. So, for example, the following interface defines constants for a month. Public interface, month numbers, public static final int, January equals 1, February 2, March equals 3, etc., etc., all the way down to December equals 12. Now, any class that implements the month numbers interface will automatically have the 12 constants defined in the month numbers interface. So, for example, consider the following toy class. We have public class demo month numbers implements month numbers, public static void main string args, system out of print line. The number for January is January. Notice I didn't have to define January in my program because it's part of that interface. All right. And as I mentioned, it's used in the class but not defined there. So the class month numbers automatically gets the month constants because it implements the month numbers interface. This is the whole strength of interfaces, is that they're like a template that you can use. Now, there's no instance variables. An interface cannot have instance variables. All right, it's not a class. It's an interface. Although it can use the syntax for instance variables as a way to define constants. So any variable defined interface must either be public, static, and final. So Java allows you to omit those modifiers. So you don't have to put public, static, final because it recognizes, hey, this is an interface. So if we look back at that equivalent definition, public interface month numbers in January 1, blah, 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 all the way up to 12. Therefore, an interface can be used to give a name for a group of defined constants so you can easily add the needed constants to any class by implementing the interface. This is a really different use for interfaces than what we've seen before, which was used to interfaces for method headings. Because for our previous examples, like, hey, here's a method header, let's make it. Now, is it legal to mix these two uses of constants and methods in a single interface? You can have like, maybe you have one for pi, and then you have a interface for calculating the area of a circle. Now, there is one pitfall, and that's that of inconsistent interfaces. Java allows a class to have only one base class, if you recall. You can't have multiple bases. You get multiple derivatives, but only one base. But you also are allowed to implement any number of interfaces. So you don't have to implement just one. The reason that a class can have only one base is that if Java is allowed two base classes, the two base classes can provide different and inconsistent definitions of a single method heading. So that's the reason why Java restricts it to just one. Now, because interfaces have no method bodies at all, this problem can't arise when a class implements two interfaces. You don't have to worry about one, like let's say they're both called the same, but maybe one calculates the area and the other one calculates the volume. You don't have to worry about any of that because in the interface, it's just kind of like a template. It doesn't actually have the definition in it until you implement it in your program. Now, the ideal is that the designers always hope that they realize that when any two interfaces are designed, they're always going to be kind of consistent. That was the whole idea behind interfaces. However, this ideal that they had was not fully realized. So there is some drawbacks to, this perfect world. Though it is a rare phenomenon, two interfaces actually can be inconsistent. There is rare cases in which it can happen. In fact, there's more than one kind of inconsistency that can be exhibited. So if you write a class definition that implements two inconsistent interfaces, that is an error, and the class definition is illegal. So you'll get, compile error or runtime error, something like that. That was I can't do this. So let's just take a quick example then at how the two interfaces could be inconsistent. So the most obvious way the two interfaces can be inconsistent is by defining two constants with the same name, but with different values. So for example, public interface, interface 1 in answer equals 42, public interface, interface 2 in answer equals 0. So you'll notice that answer is the same in both of these, but one is defined to 42, and the other one is defined to 0. There's nothing really other than that to differentiate them. So suppose the class begins then with public class, my class implements interface comma 1 or interface 2. Right? So clearly this has to be and is illegal because as we noticed, answer was 42 and was 0. Right? You can't be both at the same time. It just doesn't work. Now, even two method headings, we looked at this concept, but even two method headings can be inconsistent. So for example, we look at these two interfaces. I have a public interface A and B. One is a public int called getStuff. The other one is a string called getStuff. All right. Here, the method headings are the same name, but you notice the return types are different. So if we look at a definition that says your class implements interface A, interface B, again, we're looking at something being illegal. The method getStuff in the class your class cannot simultaneously be a method that returns an int and a method that returns a value of type string. It's not going to work. So remember that you can't overload a method based upon the type returned. So overloading won't work to get around this problem. You know, it's one of those things that is an issue. But that's it, folks. So hopefully that was pretty straightforward. Kind of give you a couple more tips of how to work with interfaces and also how to work constants into them. So we will see you next time.